I want to do a bit of just like a PSA to let people know because right now I feel like there's a ton of people getting into Final Fantasy XIV. There's just like lots and lots of people jumping in because people are getting hyped for Endwalker and people are like, oh my god, this game. And ever since Asmongold kind of like opened up the floodgates in a way, there's just been tons and tons of people joining into the game. And I want to make sure people understand. I'm not saying that like the game wasn't successful before. The game was definitely successful before. I started playing long before the WoW refugees came in, as you guys know. But it's like I just kind of feel like with that particular event, it opened up the door to a lot of new players jumping in and a lot of players that don't necessarily know what to expect from the game. Particularly people that come over from World of Warcraft and stuff, they're just like they're used to the mentality that World of Warcraft has instilled upon them, which is something that we've talked about in this stream multiple times. And that mentality is that the only thing that matters is the current expansion. Everything else that is behind, that stuff doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the end game. And, the leveling experience is just there to kind of like take us into the end game. And that's when the real game begins. And that, for starters, is not necessarily good design philosophy if that is how you design your game. But that's kind of like what World of Warcraft teaches most people. And because of that, a lot of players that come over from WoW, they bring the mentality over, and they're just, they're thinking about, oh, we should get that, we should get the boosts and the skips, and because Final Fantasy XIV also has skips in the store. It's got two of them. It's got one for leveling. Actually, it's got plenty of them because each of them is for a different job, but it's got a boost for your levels, and then it has a boost for the story, which allows you to skip the MSQ. And it's like I want people to understand those things are there for people that want to make alts in case you want to play like on a different data center or something like that. That is the purpose for the level boost and the story skip and all of that stuff, right? And listen, if you want to story skip and if you want to level boost, I'm not here to tell you how you should or should not spend your money because at the end of the day, it is your money alone. But I would like to mention briefly that those boosts are not intended for you to actually skip and not experience the story, because unlike World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV greatly values some of its older content and constantly gives players rewards for engaging in that older content, which means that traditionally you tend to have even like veteran players in sometimes in some of the starter zones, sometimes in some of the starter dungeons, sometimes in some of the starter trials, or anything in between, from the very beginning to the very end, with the exception of one thing, which is Coils of Bahamut. Unfortunately, that is that's rough. That's struggle city when it comes to trying to do that content as a newcomer, which is why you're kind of better off if you have a friend that plays. Just try to get him and maybe somebody else to boost you through Coils of Bahamut so that you at least get to experience the story there. But anyway, the point being here is I would recommend newcomers to Final Fantasy XIV to not just rush towards Endwalker, because that is not the... I would say that is not the right way to go about it. And as a matter of fact, I think that most people who try to rush through the game will end up, and I'm saying most people, not everyone, because we have some examples in the community that, they don't care about the story. They rush to endgame and they still did fine. They still enjoy the game a great deal. Like you have Lynx Camelli, you have Chris from Work to Game, who also kind of just like skipped the Shadowbringer. But Chris actually kind of regrets missing out on the story, I think, in a way. I don't know if he regrets it, but he has been going back to experience the story later down the line, which is something that you can also do if you just want to get to the end game and then later on go and experience the story. But the point is like, I don't think that if you're a newcomer to 14 that you should just skip everything and go to endgame. And I actually think that your experience is going to be significantly lesser if you do that, because the story of this game is really good. And there are some things in Realm Reborn that are maybe not as amazing as the rest of the game, because that was kind of like Realm Reborn was their first efforts into really like revitalizing the game, and and they have to do a lot of world building in Realm Reborn, and world building is not always the most interesting thing. The post patches, though, there are some in there that are really cool. But basically, all of the experience that you live through Realm Reborn gets rewarded later down the line through Heaven's Word and Stormblood, and especially Shadowbringers. And rushing to the very end of the game most likely will cause a lot of people to end up dropping out of the game, because it's just like the experience that you live throughout all of the expansions, that is what kind of like dictates how much enjoyment you're going to be getting in the story later on. And I'm just saying this to kind of hopefully prevent some people from ruining the experience for themselves and just like, no, I just want to get the Endwalker, get to do the latest thing. Because, you know, if me putting out this throughout this stream and then put it out in the video on YouTube, if me doing this causes like 2 or 3 people to maybe go like, you know what, I'm going to take it easy and I'm going to enjoy myself throughout, it will be worth it for those 2 or 3 people that end up doing that, as opposed to just like buying a boost and skipping everything. I think it will be worth it for them. But to give you guys some context, I myself, I played the game in 2013, then didn't click for me because I was playing it like WoW, just trying to rush the end game. And only when I played the game again in 2019 did it click. And it was because I decided to take my time. And in 2019, when I started playing, was shortly after, I don't remember if it was shortly after or during the release of Shadowbringers. I think it was shortly after. But Shadowbringers was out, and I was playing Realm Reborn. As everybody was like super hyped up on what is essentially considered by most to be the best expansion of this game, I was just taking my sweet time through Realm Reborn, finished Realm Reborn, did all the raids in Realm Reborn, then I went to Heaven's Word, finished Heaven's Word, did all the raids in Heaven's Word, then I went to Stormblood, and I actually took a break during Stormblood because the start of Stormblood's a little bit rough. It's not rougher than Realm Reborn, but coming off of the high that is Heaven's Word, which is just so incredibly excellent, the start of Stormblood pales a little bit in comparison. But, you know, I went through it, and by the way you reach midway into Stormblood, it starts feeling much, much better. And then get to the ending of Stormblood, do the post-quest, and then eventually jump into Shadowbringers. And the amount of payoff that you get for doing it like that, it's indescribable. And you have examples of this in the community I'd like to point out. Like, for instance, you look at Pyromancer, you look at Pint, you look at Preach, you look at Asmongold, and you see all of those people that essentially came from World of Warcraft and, you know, different backgrounds and all that. Each of them enjoys different aspects of the game, but very few of them, I would say, are actually dedicated to, you know, exploring the lore and story of World of Warcraft, and yet they got to 14 and they've been greatly enjoying that aspect of the game. So keep that in mind, because I know that there's going to be a lot of people jumping in because Endwalker releases next week, and there's a lot of people jumping in, getting super hyped and just like, I just want to get to Endwalker, I want to get to the good part. And it's like, imagine, for those of you that actually played Shadowbringers, right? Imagine skipping Shadowbringers to go to Endwalker. Like, imagine just for a sec. Hell, imagine skipping Heaven's Word. Imagine skipping the joy that is Heaven's Word, and then skipping the joy that was Shadowbringers to jump to Endwalker. That would be insane. It's like, I cannot unrecommend, I guess. I can, better yet, I cannot recommend enough that you don't skip the content, because it is content worth playing, and it is content that will be played for a long time to come. Because, like I said, 14 does not disrespect previous content. 14 respects that previous content, and, you know, at least up until now, I feel like does a really good job of providing players with incentives to actually jump back in and do that content again, you know, for either for leveling jobs or for doing whatever. And yeah, and then eventually when you do get to Endwalker, when you get to what a lot of people consider to be the good part, it's going to be an even bigger payoff. That's all I can really say about it. It's just basically too long didn't read is if you skip to Endwalker, you're going to be missing out on a lot of fantastic content, and I just want people to enjoy this game to the best of its potential, as opposed to just like getting a subpar experience.